Most haunting facts about the Titanic. A graveyard of shoes. Back in 2004, a photograph was taken of a pair of strange shoes lying on the floor at the wreckage site. Astonishingly, the public came to see this photo on the 100th anniversary of the Titanic's sinking. The shoes were so close together that they probably were once on a victim, and the body has since disintegrated. However, the movie filmmaker visited the wreckage site several times and said that no human remains were ever been found. He said that they won't be found because the bones would have dissolved relatively quickly at this depth. The only things left of the people who failed to survive are the clothes they were wearing and their belongings, mainly their shoes. Shoes found closely together more than likely are where a victim's body came to rest. Plagued by tragedy right from the start. In 28 recorded serious accidents and 218 minor accidents, 8 workers lost their lives during the 26th month of construction of the Titanic, which took place at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast. But who would have thought that this was just a small number and that a bizarre incident was going to take place in the future? Most of the 8 demises were by injuries sustained from falling either from the ship or the staging surrounding it. Apart from these 8 people, a 43-year-old shipwright lost his life on the day of the Titanic's launch. Bizarrely, Dobbin was crushed during the process of removing the timer stays which had been holding the ship upright. The ship's binoculars locked inside a cabinet with no key. On the day of the misfortune incident, the ship's lookout had to rely on their eyesight alone. They didn't have access to binoculars during the whole journey and couldn't see very far. Strangely, the ship's second officer was replaced at the last minute and forgot to hand off the key to the locker that housed the ship's binoculars. Iceberg warning. Astonishingly, the Titanic ignored many iceberg warnings. According to a magazine, the Titanic sped at 22 knots through a still motionless on April 14. Since 9 a.m. of the day prior, there had been at least 6 iceberg warnings from other ships on the same pathway in North America. Initially, a radio aboard California alerted the Titanic's Captain A.J. Smith, who wired back an acknowledgement. Early in the afternoon, an operator on the Titanic delivered a specific warning from the Baltic: Smith icebergs and large quantities of fields of ice ahead. Lookouts that were not even provided with binoculars had also been warned that ice may be encountered anytime after 9:30 p.m. However, but no icebergs were spotted throughout the evening, and due to the extremely dark night, lookouts only reported a smooth sea. Although there was an ominous sign of threat as the water temperature suddenly dropped from 43 degrees Fahrenheit to slightly below freezing. Only a few hours, which was always an indication that ice may be floating nearby, yet the Titanic neither slowed down nor turned away to avoid the bizarre situation. Predicted the sinking of the Titanic. Back in 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote The Wreck of the Titan, or Futility. Astonishingly, the plot within the story was all too familiar with the tragic incident of the Titanic. The author had written about a ship, the Titan, going on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic that struck an iceberg and sank. The liner didn't have enough lifeboats, and it absolutely was described as being unsinkable, seeing because it was the biggest ship of its day. Strangely, the story was written 14 years before the sinking of the Titanic. Many wondered if Robertson was a prescient writer, but others said he just knew what he was talking about, since he wrote mainly about maritime affairs. Perhaps he saw ocean liners becoming bigger and bigger and wondered about the threat of this, including icebergs. Robertson was approached and asked if he was clairvoyant after the sinking of the Titanic. "No," he replied, "I know what I'm writing about, that's all." Confirmation of Titanic sinking. Initially, when a research team led by an expert finally discovered the wreck in 1985, this was the first time, of course, anyone had seen the Titanic since the sinking. It actually ended a 73-year-old debated argument over whether or not the ship had split into two parts. Surprisingly, later the ship was discovered in two pieces, confirming the fact that it had been disregarded at the time of reporting of the disaster. Until the discovery of the wreckage, it was believed that the ship had sunk in a single piece. However, it was even printed in the American Inquiry as being fully intact when it sank. In order to protect the White Star Line's reputation, Second Officer had said that it sank absolutely intact. Despite this, however, various passengers insisted they heard a loud sound and that the ship broke in half. However, they did not necessarily see how the ship sank, but they swore it broke in two. Cancelled emergency drills. When Titanic struck the iceberg, an emergency lifeboat drill was scheduled that never happened. On 14 April, due to still unknown reasons, the drill ironically was cancelled by Captain Smith. However, if the drill would have taken place, there were chances that people's lives could have been saved. In the fact that passengers would have been aware of how to react in such bizarre situation, and would have been more likely to have followed proper protocols and procedures in loading the lifeboats.